If it seems like you've been waiting for the markets to shift before making a move, and you're probably worried that if you buy now you're going to overpay, well, that fear makes complete sense because rates are still sitting above 6%, and prices have not cratered the way some people predicted. So waiting feels like the logical, disciplined thing to do. But the March 2026 Greater Palm Springs Realtors Desert Housing Report just came out, and the data confirms something that you need to hear about before you wait any longer. The shift has already happened. 7 cities across the Coachella Valley now have months of supply above 6.0, and sellers are already cutting prices to compensate. Hi, Neil here, your Living in Palm Springs Realtor. I help people like you buy and sell here in the Greater Palm Springs area. In this video, we're going straight into the numbers for prices, inventory, and days on the market for the Coachella Valley, and specifically for Palm Springs, La Quinta, and Palm Desert, because those 3 cities are telling very different stories right now. Let's start with the valley-wide picture, because you need this baseline before the city-by-city breakdown makes any sense. The median price of a detached single-family home in the Coachella Valley ended March at $690,000, which represents a 2.8% drop from just 1 year ago. Attached homes like condos or townhomes came in at $499,000, which is down 2.6% from the same time last year. Neither of those numbers is a crash, but they do represent real, measurable movement in the buyer's direction. Single-family homes are already selling at an average discount of 2.8% below list price across the entire Coachella Valley. And that number is your starting point for any offer that you write, not your ceiling. Sales volume is nearly flat, with 3 months average coming in at 651 units compared to 661 units 1 year ago. And current sales are running about 16.9% below the historic norm for the Coachella Valley. What that tells you is buyers are still active and haven't left the market, but they're being much more selective, which is exactly what you'd expect when inventory is rising and urgency is lower. Inventory is the real story here. Coachella Valley-wide months of supply sits at 5.7 right now, and 7 individual cities have already crossed the 6.0 mark. Now think of that 6.0 months of supply as a magic number. Anything above that means buyers have the upper hand, and right now, most of our cities have crossed that line. The bidding war era is also effectively over. Only 8.8% of homes sold above list price in March, which is a drop from the 11.5% we saw a year ago. If you were one of the buyers getting beat out 12 months ago while watching homes go over asking price from the sidelines, that dynamic has fundamentally changed. Sellers are the ones that are adjusting right now. Single-family homes are selling at an average discount of 2.8% below list price, while attached homes or condos are sitting at 3.4% below. Those aren't massive numbers on paper, but on a $700,000 home, a 2.8% discount is roughly $19,600 off list price before negotiations even begin. Now that's real money. Now let's address the thing that most buyers are actually waiting for, which is for the interest rates to drop. As of late March, the 30-year fixed rate sits at 6.44%, and the Mortgage Bankers Association projects rates will stay above 6% now through the end of 2026. Even the more optimistic forecasts from Fannie Mae, which had projected rates reaching 5.7 by year-end, were put together before the oil price surge in March pushed rates back up. It sounds like if you're trying to apply these valley-wide averages to every home you see on Zillow, this market is too fragmented for that approach to work. Palm Springs, Palm Desert, and La Quinta are not operating in the same market right now, and the data tells a very different story on each city. Let's start with Palm Springs because this is where the numbers get genuinely interesting for anyone looking for a deal. As of March, the average detached home in Palm Springs is priced at $1,103,493, which represents a 12.5% drop from just 1 year ago, and the biggest price correction here in the entire Coachella Valley. On the condo side, condos and townhomes landed at $432,910, showing an 8.3% dip. These aren't just small changes, they show that sellers are finally getting real about their homes and actually what they're worth in today's market. Inventory in Palm Springs currently sits at 769 units, giving it the second highest supply in the valley and a 5.6-month cushion. Sellers here are discounting an average of 3% from their list price, and on a $1 million home, That 3% gives you roughly $33,000 of negotiating room before you've even sat down to write a formal offer. If it sounds like Palm Springs might be the market where buyers have the most leverage right now, and the data certainly backs that up, what's worth noting though is that Palm Springs is also the fastest selling city in the valley at 43 days on the market. Demand didn't actually disappear, it just got a lot more selective. Buyers are taking their time and getting pickier, but they're also still closing, which means that your window of opportunity is real, but it isn't going to stay open forever. Palm Desert tells a completely different story, where prices haven't corrected nearly as sharply. The average single-family home there sits at $734,922, down only 3.3% year over year, while condos came in at $518,761, which is a 6.1% decrease. While the correction is real, it's much more moderate than what we're seeing in Palm Springs. What Palm Desert offers instead is pure volume and liquidity. It currently runs the highest unit sales in the valley at 149 homes per month, and that carries also the largest inventory at 801 units. And it generates a massive $117 million in monthly dollar sales. This is the most active market here in the Coachella Valley, full stop. With a 5.4 month supply of inventory and 52 days on the market, it's a landscape that's tilting toward buyers without having tipped all the way over yet. You can definitely negotiate here, but you probably can't stall indefinitely. The depth of inventory gives you genuine options, meaning that you have more homes to compare and more sellers competing for your attention, which allows you to be patient without feeling like you're missing out on everything. For buyers who want mid-range pricing and a market where motivated sellers are easy to find, Palm Desert is worth a very serious look right now. And then there's La Quinta, and this is where you really need to pump the brakes on your assumptions. La Quinta's detached homes are down 3.8% year over year to $892,229, which sounds very similar to Palm Desert on the surface, but the attached market tells a different tale. Attached homes or condos in La Quinta are actually up 8.8% to $682,042, making it the city with the largest increase in attached home prices in the entire Coachella Valley. With only 4.5 months of supply, it has the tightest inventory in the entire Coachella Valley as well. And honestly, assuming La Quinta is going to give you the same deals as Palm Springs right now could be a pretty expensive mistake. And buyers who walk into La Quinta expecting deep discounts are going to find a much tougher negotiating environment than they would expect. Sellers here feel less pressure to cut prices because buyers are still incredibly active, and the prices increase for attached homes prove that demand is still outpacing supply. In a market this tight, hesitation does have a real cost. Every week you spend waiting for a better deal is a week where the available inventory shrinks, and the seller feels less pressure to move on price. When you stack them up, the choice depends on your goals. Palm Springs offers the deepest price cuts and the most leverage, but you're playing in a higher price tier with plenty of competition. Palm Desert gives you volume and mid-range value in a balanced market that's leading your way. And La Quinta is holding firm and even rising in some spots, rewarding those who show up ready to move. These are three very different realities, and the valley-wide averages won't help you navigate them. Since these three cities are moving in opposite directions, if any of this is hitting close to home, the easiest next step is just to book a quick call, no pressure, on Zoom with me. We pull up the actual inventory and your price point and see what actually makes sense for you. There's a link below to book the discovery call. Now you might be thinking that a buyer's market means that you can just lowball any listing, but the days on the market data tells a much more nuanced story about who actually has the leverage. The median days on the market for the Valley landed at 49 days in March, which is the only one day off from what it was last year. What the numbers tell us is that the market isn't frozen and homes are still moving. Sellers aren't panicking yet, but they aren't in a position to hold firm forever either. 49 days is more than enough time for a motivated seller to start getting uncomfortable, especially as those monthly carrying costs start to pile up. The city-by-city numbers add even more texture to the strategy. Bermuda Dunes sits at 66 days, which is the highest in the valley, while Rancho Mirage is much faster at 44 days. When a home has been sitting for over 60 days in a market where the average is 49 days, the seller already knows that their strategy just isn't working. This is exactly where you have the most room to move on price without the conversation feeling super adversarial, because the seller's own data is already telling them that they need to make a move on price. It's also important to look at price discounts by bracket, because this is where buyers often miscalculate their hand. Home prices between $700,000 and $900,000 are seeing some of the smallest discounts in the Coachella Valley, usually around 2.5 to 2.9%. Now that mid-range segment is still very competitive because more buyers can afford it. So sellers there do not feel the same pressure to cave. If you're shopping in that bracket and expecting the same leverage you'd find at the $1 million mark, you're probably going to be disappointed. At the top end of the market, homes priced over $2 million are selling at an average discount of 3.9%. On a $2 million purchase, that's a $78,000 haircut off the list price before you've even asked for repairs or for closing costs. Sellers with expensive homes have fewer people looking to buy, and their houses sit empty for a long time. That makes them much more willing to say yes to your offer. If you're shopping in the high end, the data is firmly on your side. The conversation about interest rates comes back into play here because the math actually matters more than the headlines. Fannie Mae's earlier forecast had rates potentially reaching 5.7% by the end of the year. But even if that happens, home prices won't just sit still while you wait. With national price growth expected to hit 2% to 3% through 2026, waiting could cost you. If a PalmSprings home is priced at $1.1 million today and appreciates 3% while you wait for a rate price drop that may never happen, you've just added $33,000 to your purchase price. A lower interest rate might save you a little bit each month, but paying a higher price for the house costs you way more in the long run. Locking in a negotiated price today and then refinancing later is really a concrete plan, while waiting for the perfect rate is just a gamble. The practical move for you right now is simple. Use that 3 to 3.4% average discount as your starting anchor for any offer you write, rather than treating it as the ceiling of a price. Since that's where sellers are already landing, opening at that level isn't just being aggressive, it's just being informed. The leverage that you have right now is real, but it's already starting to shift. When rates eventually drop, more buyers will come off the sidelines and into the market, and inventory will tighten, and the discounts that you're seeing today will start to disappear. The data isn't predicting a crash, but it is showing a clear gap between supply and demand that favors buyers today, and these gaps always close faster than people expect. If you want an advisor who gives you the cold truth instead of what is convenient to hear, would you be opposed to booking a discovery call just to see if we're a mutual fit? The link is in the description below. The market is shifting faster than the headlines can keep up with. If you don't want to be the last person to know when these buyer discounts start to disappear, keep watching for more local updates. Now, watch this next video all about living here in the Palm Springs area.